It says we're recording. There we go. All right, welcome everyone. This is the September 20th Board of County Commissioners 9 a.m. strategic planning meeting. Please let the record reflect that Commissioners Jordan and Kearns are in the conference room. We're joined virtually by Commissioner Waldriff. Commissioner French is traveling with STA, and Commissioner CUNY will be joining us shortly. So we are going to lead off today with Randy Bischoff. He's got a number of things queued up for us, but I believe first we're going to start with Gil Halpert, going to talk about facilities, infrastructure, improvements on the campus. So take it away.
Good morning, commissioners. So we want to go back. So I want to start a little off on this in about the discussion that we had last time about House Bill 1257. And we're not going to go into that, but we never really got a real opportunity staying with the House Bill 1257 to really show you what the infrastructure upgrades will look like to Spokane County from now until say 20 years from now, and what we'll be up against financially with that. So next slide. So we talked previous about the difference between a hydronic system and staying with our present high pressure steam system. Next slide. So what we wanted to recap on this is these are the necessary improvements to Spokane County facilities and infrastructure. The need converting to hydronic versus staying with steam, the benefits of hydronic, that this is an ESPC. So it really is an energy savings performance contract. So, and the risks of staying with steam, the financials of it, summary, and then we'll go into a Q&A. The need. Okay, the following requires capital investment to maintain long-term reliability and efficient operations. Central Steam Plant, we're coming up on 40 years since the units were actually commissioned, and then we're actually, some of them are actually over 40 years. So we have, without any type of major retubing, any type of refractory work, anything that really we're coming up on that life expectancy of, where they would actually need to be hauled out, sent back to a factory and refurbished. So what we want to show you is we want to show you what that difference is with staying with steam or moving over to the hydronic. So the chilled water systems at max capacity, we've known about that for a while. We're unable to maintain cooling on peak days, especially when we start losing ground over time. When we hit that 90-degree plus every day we go, we start losing ground on that. We've used workarounds on that, where we've actually used raw city water to keep it cool, but that's at a very, very high energy expense. So that's one of the issues we have. Critical electrical switchgear. We added those into the original plan, although they don't show the significant energy savings. We do know on those systems that we have hit that 50-year mark on some of them. And you know, the one in our jail, the location that was actually it was put into wasn't ever temperature controlled, and that didn't happen until just a few years ago when we started to have failures on the switchgear buckets themselves, where we noticed that the Bakelite that's around the actual starters and stuff, they were actually starting to just disintegrate. So as we were replacing those, we found that they're no longer available. So we've been buying them from secondary markets. So not only are we at the maximum capacity on that switchgear unit, but it was very, very neglected. So domestic hot water. Again, we're heating hot water with steam. And in the dead of summer, for us to do that, we have to fire up one of our huge boilers, our 5 million BTU boiler, just to heat hot water for the public safety building and heat the steam kettles for the jail and the dryers for the laundry service. So this was all part of that vision that we had. And then air handling equipment. Some of these have degraded very, very bad. Our unit up here in the attic of the courthouse is in dire need of replacement. The one in the basement of the jail saw tremendous amounts of moisture in that area, where it actually returning that moisture to that system basically took the insides of it and actually just corroded it. So we're at the point now where our repairs have been Band-Aid repairs. And we have many more that were targeted on this. Next slide. So to convert to a hydronic, these are the numbers. So we went back from the last meeting because we really wanted to take a look at where we're at with that. With the ESPC project cost, we looked at that $35 million mark, 35, 36. And then we looked at the utility savings side of that, the operational labor side of it, the operational material savings and rebates. So there are other savings involved in on this. But what we've looked at is we've taken a deep dive into over the next 23 years. Next slide. This is what we anticipate we're going to have to put forward anyway to keep the operation going. And you're not going to get any type of significant savings payback, even by rebuilding the boilers, even by, these small repairs that we've been doing, which could turn into big repairs if one of them were to catastrophically fail on us. A switch here. We had a freak storm here last week. We had some lights flicker. We did drop one of our buckets or switch gears over in the juvenile detention. Thank God none of these other ones that we've got slated on this got hit, but we're kind of waiting for an event like that may be something we can't crawl back from. So we wanted to, so this is added in, not only switching out the switch gears over the next 20 years, this is also looking at rebuilding the refractories, the boilers. This is what that cost is roughly gonna come to anyway.
Does not include pipes.
Exactly. So that is one of the other ones too. When we did that, we tried to show the apples to apples with the hydronic system versus the present steam system. This figures doesn't include any of the piping either. So once the piping, we do treat our boilers and our steam very well, but they do start to get to that age where we will start seeing pitting, we will start seeing breakthroughs on the system. And those catastrophic failures in the tunnel we would have to shut the entire system down. So we just don't want to get to a level in the dead of winter where we have to get to that where we have to do a repair and we have to shut the steam systems down, because that is the only transit system in to our campus-wide facility. That hydronic system would replace all that piping with all of it. That's actually figured into that cost. Next slide. So, and I can go further into that. So the benefits of the hydronic heat. So state-of-the-art high efficiency boiler system, new piping throughout the tunnel distribution system, new high efficiency domestic hot water boilers and piping distribution system, smart, efficient, reliable systems that will only run during cold weather months. Utility and operation savings over that 20 years is 10.5. So now that's 10.5 for the 24 million for the hydronic system. But we did want to put that extra, since we're comparing the apples to apples and the potential that those units are going to fail. That's why we added in the switchgear along with that. So we have a better representation. But on the actual utility savings alone, it'll be the 10.5 and it'll continue that savings into the future. Clean air compliance, greenhouse gas reduction. So we know that these are all ASHRAE compliant that we're doing. Significantly less components in the new systems, safer than high pressure steam by far, especially if, like I said, we get any major ruptures or anything along that line, we guess we never really thought about how to fix those systems. If we've got a hydronic system in the tunnel, we can actually repair those with band clamps and get us back up running again. That'll give us a temporary window where we can come and actually do the fix, but that would be years down the road. Significantly less components. I think I went over that. See, diversity in the mechanical workforce. That was one of the main ones we've got to. That high pressure boiler operator, that stationary engineer, that is really kind of, I think everybody's getting more on the efficiency bandwagons. And it's really only going more towards the utility power industries and other, operations that require high pressure steam to drive large equipment. Next slide. So the risks of staying with steam, I think I went over some of these. After restoring each boiler, they will still be old components remaining. So even if we have the refractories redone, we have them retubed, we have them replated, the shells and stuff are still the same. So we still bear that risk. Now, having them rebuilt at the factories, of course, they would regrade the shells and stuff, but they're not brand new. So we did want to make sure to throw that into, so tunnel distribution system, the piping, the valves, the shell, those are still the existing equipment where the hydronic system, everything is new.
Hey, Bill,
Yeah.
do you remind the commissioners what the refractories are?
Yeah, we have a picture in the addendum, so I could show them kind of where we're aged, so you could kind of get a gauge of what it's done. So using steam all seasons during the summer months, we really, that is where we see the highest rate of energy usage. Is we are firing up one of our boilers to run it all summer to just provide minimal service except for the heating of the hot water. So significantly more components, steam traps, condensate transfer stations, steam regulators, heat exchangers. These are all units that we're continually monitoring, but also replacing components. So that is factored in on our savings. Next slide. So the critical infrastructure in need of replacement. So these were the items that we went through, did a deep dive on. So the AHU fan wall upgrades, these are on those systems I talked about at first, that these units are failing and will eventually fail over time. Heat recovery, the domestic hot water system, replacement of the hot water coils in the AHUs. So even like as of right now, all of our units that we have, we would be replacing all the hot water heating coils. So that means our heating systems would all be brand new at that level. Even for the air handlers that we still feel have lots of life and longevity, they would be getting new hot water coils. Metasys control system upgrade. As the systems get newer, they're going to have to be replaced anyway. So we added that figure in, so it's still an apples to apples. I mean, we're going to get it, new version of Windows, new operating hardwares. And as that happens here at the county, we have to upgrade the Metasys. So it goes side by side. That cost is going to happen anyway. We added the switchgear upgrades for those specific areas because we feel that those are in the worst condition. But the upgrades on the ADB componentry, we can actually use in other places. So a lot of this that we take out, we do have some buildings elsewhere that will buy us a little bit more time, but they're not in as need of upgrade as these ones are. LED lighting upgrade. We're working on that right now with Avista. We're doing that one on our own. We plan on, like we have been everywhere, you've been seeing changes to that. We'll continue on with that. But that is just one of the things that we have listed in the project. Chiller plant, primary pumping, mechanical upgrades. These are the original pumps Original impellers. We have been rebuilding. We know they don't even make that vintage pump. But we've been proactive in keeping some spare parts. But on a lot of them, we have to take them out and we have to completely strip them down and rebuild them. Chiller plant condensate pump VFD upgrades. That's something we'll have to do anyway. Chiller plant cooling tower common headers. This is one that we came up with in the calculation point of this as part of the energy savings. This is something that we would need to do anyway because of, we're getting to that level where we're those hotter summer days, we're experiencing this where we need to be more proactive and get our systems more up. Well, we've come up with an engineered solution to common header our cooling towers. So as we're falling behind on one unit before we do the switch over to another one, we would actually be able to divert water and utilize two cooling towers at the same time instead of just the one. So we've come up with some scenarios, but that will take some piping. These are all items that they're infrastructure upgrades. They're in need of replacing over the next 20 years, but we're either going to do it anyway, or we can do it now and show a savings. Next slide. Do we want to go over this portion of it?
This just shows you the cash flow.
Yep.
So if we go to hot water, we do have it's more front ended in the cash flow versus staying on steam. In the end, both systems cost about the same amount. Without the savings, you add that savings back in, and steam, of course, or hot water is less money. But because of the timing of payments, we also did look at the net present value because it costs, you use borrowed money longer. So there still is about a $4 million savings in the net present value as well, even though there's a $10 million difference in cost. So next, we can go to the next slide.
Okay, next slide.
Can I pause?
Yes.
Yep.
Do you have any sense of the cost of the piping that you talked, piping upgrades? In the
If you
status
stayed on
quo?
steam.
We didn't include that in. We
Is
didn't
that,
include what it would take to actually change that piping. We would probably have somebody come in and grade it first. So, but what that means is the only way to grade it is actually we have to cut off probably about $250,000 worth of insulation just to get to it, to get them to do some type of grade survey.
Okay.
So we could add that in, but we just assumed the boilers would be the major cost of the expenses to get them redone.
Thank you.
If we go real quick to the appendix, and it's on the second slide of the appendix, Ron.
Next.
Next slide. Okay, right there. So I just wanted to show you again real quick. You can kind of see the refractory and the actual fire pot. So this refractory is on both ends of the boiler, and it's also around the boiler inside where the actual fire, basically it's the oven portion of it. But the only way to get to that is you have to cut the plates off. That's why these things have to go to the factory to be redone, recertified, restamped. And that's why the expenses where they were, but eventually all boilers have to have that done. It's just a matter of time. If we can go back.
Can I add a little bit on the pipe?
Yep.
Another challenge, as we're trying to operate the steam plant and whether we convert or stay, the piping challenge begins where with hydronic, our pipe size is slightly smaller and we're able to come up with a creative way to run the new pipe first, continue operations on steam. If we were to replace the steam pipe and the condensate, the diameter is larger, so it'd be more difficult to be able to place a new line in. And even for testing purposes, we would have to bring down our steam plant, which we rely on,
Right.
24/7 just to perform the testing. So everything is doable. It's just how and how much.
So bearing that in mind, we're in the summary for the ESPC hydronic. By choosing to implement the critical infrastructure improvement measures using the ESPC model, Spokane County can save 10.5 million over 20 years in energy and operational costs. The benefits of the ESPC are guaranteed. That was one of the strong points of using that ESPC model, is that it is guaranteed. So in those first 3 years, when we do the M&V on those performance metrics that we've created off of our energy usage today, if they don't meet those, that's on our vendor to correct those issues. It's not just, hey, we almost got there, but no, this is really for them to make those corrections and get us those energy savings. And then if there is a surplus on that side of it, it shows a bigger savings on the bottom line for 20 years. So the benefits of the ESPC are guaranteed. Savings continue to grow past that 20 years. Not only does it grow past that, but it's, as we talked about earlier, I can't see into the future 20, 30 years from now, but if upgrades to the electrical sides of it or cleaner methods come, that we would still be with hydronic, then it would be an easy retrograde or retrofit to actually swap those over to a different type of system but still stay on the hydronic model. So investing now lowers our failure risk and improves our ability to maintain critical business operations long term. We've talked about the switch gears, but it's kind of the other items that we really talk about. One of the things I guess I didn't, it's the recovery time for the hydronic side versus the steam side. So moving along, and especially in these shoulder months where we can go where we project that it's going to be fairly warm and the buildings will stay warm. And then all of a sudden tomorrow we're going to get, it's going to go, temperature's going to dip down in the 20s. These are those shoulder months that we have those issues. We try to stay one boiler on standby at those, when we get to those critical times of the months. But if we have a major failure on a boiler and we have to shut it down like right now, it's going to take a little while for that boiler to get up to that full operating temperature for the heating side of it. Where with the hydronic systems, they're almost instantaneous. So you fire them up and they go. There's very little delay to them. They're very efficient, you can say, in the warm up position. So those are some of the critical items that we wanted to look at. Next slide. And then again, staying with the steam, investment and upgrades can be rolled out strategically over several years to optimize the debt. So I rolled those costs into my 20-year projection that we put together. The total cost will be greater with this approach because you just don't get those savings. And then higher risk of equipment failure. Refurbish is less efficient plant than new. And then the utility and operational costs remains greater by choosing to stay with steam. So these are kind of the next slide. These are the points, and then we'll go into the Q&A, but these are the main highlights of that we feel like we really didn't get, enough time to really strategically show you what we were looking at outside of the House bill. This was a very engineered approach to the way, we wanted to make sure and be as efficient as possible, but also provide that longevity for the county and the county operations.
So kind of to summarize this, we're at a critical juncture point with our major heating and cooling infrastructure and switchgear at the county here. So we know our switchgear is beyond end of life and risk of failure. Those those are fairly large, expensive units. We know our cooling towers need to be replaced, repaired. We know our air handling units need to be replaced, repaired. And we have a decision point on the boilers. They either need to be fully overhauled and craned out of here to the manufacturer to get the refractories replaced and recondition them, which are pretty expensive, or invest in a hydronic hot water system that has demonstrated energy savings over the long term and invests in new 50-year expected life units and invests in new piping throughout the entire campus. And all that is large ticket items. Either way you look at it, it's $35 million. The hydronic system, the hydronic system shows energy savings over time, which are very important. We invest in complete state-of-the-art energy management systems, which allows much more computerized approaches to managing our heating and cooling throughout the campus versus a lot of manual intervention that the team does today. It introduces concepts like light harvesting in our office spaces, which allows the lights to be adjusted automatically based on what the ambient lighting is coming in. So it's a lot smarter of a system. So it's an investment that we need to make. It's a large investment. The question is, which direction do we go? And based on the analysis that Gil's team has done, which is very significant, the hydronic system with demonstrated energy savings and completely upgrading our entire system is a much more of a recommended approach than going and staying on the high pressure steam with the boilers and dealing with all the conveyance and piping that is still not even considered to be upgraded. So I think Randy's got it. We can take some questions and stuff. Randy's also got some ideas on how to pay for something like this as well. So just want to summarize the state of the state.
Sure, Jordan.
Gil, you said
It's more a state of the county.
yeah.
State of the county. Correct. State of the county.
True. You said that the newer, if we go with the hydronic system, it would be safer by far. What do you mean by that?
Well, there's also downplays. We don't like to downplay it because we have people that have a lot of experience. Myself, I carry the stationary engineer's license. Michael does himself, but we know as well as anybody, we do these rounds every hour on the hour. We check different stations, we check different water quality, but kind of some of those limiting factors are, at any time you could walk up to a major steam rupture. They get really, really dangerous. And the best, it's safest option we have to take the plant down. So with a, hydronic system, all the systems that I've been exposed to since they came really on the market here about 18 years ago was the first unit that I actually got to take part in. Usually you see, it starts with a leak. You'll start to see the antifreeze. You'll start to see the discoloration of the insulation. You usually never really have like a rupture, like a dangerous rupture on it. You could even have a broken gasket where it'll leak, but the unit itself is smart enough to see the DP across it where it shuts itself down. So it's just a much safer system. I think here, going back in the history, I think we were, at that time, we were buying steam from Avista, from the old steam plant. And I think because all the infrastructure was already here for steam, the logical choice was to build a steam plant. I think we've gotten to the level now where we've kind of, for the model of business that we have, steam really isn't a fit for us anymore. Going to something that, meets those efficiency standards, and meets the greenhouse standards, it's just a way more efficient operation.
Thanks.
Oh, Sam ain't with us anymore. Never mind. I don't have any question. I guess my next question would Shift over to Randy.
Okay, commissioners, I've handed you a pack of 3 sheets. The first sheet just kind of summarizes an option that I think could be workable. Again, either system's gonna cost us about 36 million. But if we went with a hydronic, one of the suggestions I would have is take some money out of fund balance. Again, I'm estimating here about $12 million. The one-time funding, that's really ARP clawback. If we could claw back ARP dollars, we can claw back, it has to be under 10 million. Because if it's over 10 million, then we have to do a nexus to COVID. But the switch plant would work great for this. This couldn't be ARP going towards the hot water. This would be really the switch gear and things like that. That would leave us about a $15 million debt with an annual payment for 20 years of $1.1 million. If we used the energy savings of roughly $500,000 a year, then we would only need to take 600,000 out of REAP 1 to pay off the debt. The second sheet you have is our REAP 1 sheet, showing that right now we expect to have capacity that's not committed. I mean, you can commit for anything you want. If we go to parks, go to other buildings, but we've got about $1.3 million a year, 1.314. So this would take about 600,000 of that capacity for 20 years. So that is an option that I would present as a way to pay for a hot water system. Again, you could pay for, we could do the same thing if we stayed with steam. It's just gonna cost us more in the long run, but we can spread the debt out over time. But if we have a bunch of ARP clawbacks, I would think that's a good way to at least pay for the switch gear.
Nice. Oh, I was just gonna say, I mean, you say we can stay with steam. I know Gil throughout, you said we can stay with steam, but you've got a whole list of reasons why would we stay with steam? I mean, it seems pretty clear we shouldn't stay with steam,
Well,
but I mean, but I mean, you do present that as an option
right.
that we could.
You
But
know,
you give all the reasons why we shouldn't. Why would we, or why should we?
I mean,
More expensive, it seems like higher risk of failure, like, I don't really see any upside, so. I mean, why
Yeah.
does it still remain an option?
exactly. Well, I mean, it's there because of the infrastructure. It's still there. I'm just letting you know that, you know, we continue to maintain it at a very, very high level. But we're just letting you know over the next 23 years that those are really, they're gonna need to be fixed. So even if we stay with steam, which would not be my recommended option, that will still, these are some of the repairs we're gonna be coming to ask for.
Okay.
So we're gonna be coming to ask for getting refractories rebuilt. Hopefully we'll be proactive with the switchgear sides of it, and we're not asking you guys for emergency funding. Because then we'll be asking for a lot more, especially if we have to start thinking about bringing in temporary power. We've even gone as far as to look into insurance policies for that. There are a few companies out there that actually, you can buy an insurance policy. It's pretty expensive. But if your unit were to fail, they would mobilize and try to get you back in operation. But it's at a lease cost, and that lease cost can be very expensive over time until we actually get the new switchgear. But those are the big things with switchgear, because it's kind of like with the SAR project. That was the final component that came. It was the first one ordered, and the last one to come in was the switchgear. So they are right now, they're at a tremendous backlog for whatever company we go with to get switchgear made for these buildings.
And then one other question, so you mentioned for a lot of this, you know, the existing infrastructure, you've had to go out and find used parts.
Yep.
Because they're not manufactured. Once, if we shift over to the new equipment, the old equipment is removed, is there a secondary market? Are there places around the country that are still using this old equipment that we could then sell, and we
Yeah.
piece some of these out to? I mean,
We never really thought about that. We just looked at, do we have existing infrastructure in other buildings like the Gardner Center, the juvenile detention, that we can use some of these components, but anything outside of that, we could certainly look at that. They've actually gone past their depreciation, so we would be able to put them on the salvage market.
Okay.
Where companies may be interested in
I
buying
was
it.
just, I mean, if
They're-
we were
yeah.
looking to buy the stuff, I assume someone else out there might be looking to buy the stuff too.
Yeah, there's a local vendor here in Spokane even, they're one of the, on the west coast here, they're one of the larger ones. ESP or, yeah, and basically it's kind of like the junkyards for cars, but for electrical components.
We are utilizing the scrap
Yeah.
costs and prices for demolition costs. It's almost a wash, so
Yeah.
anything we take out that's not sellable, the scrap cost of metal will go towards demolition. So that's already included in.
Yeah.
So the team is recommending going with a hydronic heat system and all the upgrades. They also anticipated though that the commissioners might ask the question, what does it look like if we stayed on steam and what are the impacts of it? So they wanted to at least have that for a comparison. I think as you look to it, as you pointed out, Mr. Kearns, there's clearly advantages to going towards a hydronic and disadvantages staying with steam.
Yeah, I appreciate the follow-up and kind of the deep dive on looking at the cost of the status quo, which just by virtue of everything being really old, seems to be kind of a ticking time bomb. So in terms of timing, do you have a suggestion as to how soon we should be making these changes? Is it just kind of the sooner you move, the more savings you see and the less risk you have?
That would be it. We would continue forward with that ESPC model that we had, that 36-month model. We would stay with that same timeline, because that portion of it, we would probably look at when we're actually doing the actual project of this, when we're laying that out, we would probably target the boiler side of it first, getting those ordered, getting those ready to go, start working on the actual piping schemes, getting that going in the off times where we can work and get that one online first so we can experience the savings sooner. Because that one would be more targeted, and we know that we're gonna have at least an 18 to 24 month waiting for the switchgear to come in. So we would stay really, really focused on that. And as time permitted in those shoulder months, that's when we would target the complete refurbishment of some of these air handling systems. Which that's something I really didn't key on as much either. You know, the air handling systems that we have, they're old, they're outdated. And these are the actual, this is like your furnace air handler at home. Again, the old components and everything in there, everything that we put into these units, we've actually got to look at some of these companies that do these refurbishments, and they are very, very clean operations. They don't put in corrosion, everything they put in is corrosion resistant. So they're not gonna experience corroding. And if they break down, what it is, it's usually like modules between 4 and 6. We put these in the medical examiner and we put them over at the crisis stabilization and the shooting range. So when one of the units actually starts to fail, the automation will tell you that, but you're actually able to replace it while it stays in operation. You pull the module out, you could put a new module in, and you're ready to go. Plus, we look at, with those being more cleaner, the air quality definitely improves.
Commissioners, I would also say with the contracting, if we are gonna use any ARP clawback to pay for the switchgear, we would have to have that under contract before the end of the year. And with a 24-month lead time, I would say the sooner the better, because we have to spend the money by December 31st of 2026. So to the extent you have any clawback and we're using it for this project, I would say sooner the better.
And we still need to hear from Jeff on how their discussion with different groups is going, right? Awardees.
How much money become that?
Yeah. I just think it's when you lay out the costs and benefits, clearly there's a right answer. It's just a question of how to pay for it, I think, and maybe we could
And
come back with a couple options. I appreciate this as an illustrative
well,
example.
and other options can be you can take on more debt, use more fund balance. So the very last sheet shows the fund balance at the end of 2023 in the unassigned category, which is really the fund balance that is available for these types of things. There was $36 million. So if you said, I want to do more fund balance because I'm doing less ARP clawback, or I want to have less debt, those are your three sound levels, you know, that can slide up and down.
And a little bit of REIT, right?
Yes, so the REIT would be used, some of the REIT would be used for the payment of the debt. Again, I would suggest using the energy savings of $500,000 a year to pay for the first $500,000 of debt payment and only use REIT. I mean, you could use future fund balance also. You could use future operations. It doesn't have to be REIT. But those are the two options you kind of have. Do you want to use REIT 1? Do you want to use future operating or future revenue to pay for that? But it's a balance, and you don't, and whatever decision you make, you have that flexibility to change it. You don't have to be locked into your decision for that 20 years, just the debt payment.
So do you want a decision from us today, a direction?
I would say a direction to proceed with contracting.
Okay.
And then we can bring that back to you for, if that is where we'd like to go. I would say that's what we would like, is the direction to bring the contracts back to you first. Signature.
Did we lose Amber?
Yeah, a while ago.
And
So-
we don't necessarily need a decision. We're not looking for a decision today. We wanted to come back with all this information. So you had an understanding of what the analysis showed. But we do know that the next steps would be, if the board's ready to execute the contract, and we have about a 36-month window. So whenever we start that, it's 36 months out before we complete the project. So that's a time.
But for the switch here, we need to execute before the end of the year
Yes.
and have it here before 26.
Yes, for that piece.
If
We
you
know that-
use-
we know it's
to
about a
the
two-year-
extent you use.
We know it's about a 2-year.
Between a rock and a hard place, Mary.
Not today, but soon.
Oh, now we can make a
Very-
decision.
This is not a decision now, this is a direction.
So. Love to have
I would say go in the direction that is advised here. That's what I would say.
I agree.
Which is
The new equipment. Don't repair the old steam equipment. Move on to the new
the second one, or is it the
It's,
total?
that's all the total. The presentation was basically stay on the existing high pressure steam boilers or move to a hydronic heat system.
And the cost of
And
both.
the hydronic heat system is a recommendation. It's they're both similar in terms of costs, both about 35 million. But the hydronic shows energy savings and labor savings, and supply savings over time that probably is about a 12 to 13 million dollar delta, which is, to the positive. So this is just an example that Randy put together as to how we might pay for the $36 million investment. Not the only option, but it's an option.
It'll be uploaded to YouTube shortly. Have
You
you
can listen
adjourned
to-
today? And
Yep.
Like me, who's the number person, like, I can't track how all these spreadsheets are going together.
all right,
Okay, awesome.
thank you.
Thank you. And Tessa will be taking the rest of this meeting. I go to the doctor's.
Sounds good.
And if you have any more questions, just give me a call.
I'll let you just continue.
No, I mean, it's fine now. We're through that, so now we're just on to the presentations. So,
Okay.
about 15 minutes behind, but we'll make it up. I assume, are they sitting in the small conference room?
Yes.
Over there? Okay.
Hello. Good morning.
How are you guys doing?
All good.
We're good.
Good. Hey. Christopher just. He was having a problem with Clark this morning.
It's all right.
Okay. While we wait for Chris to get going, let me just pull up.
They came from Shell.
Okay, well, let's guys go ahead and get started.
Good morning. Next slide, perfect. Yeah, these two slides we put in every one, but it's two big things, housing services. So some things we wanted to cover is transports. We transport east and west every week to Ellensburg and to State Line, Idaho. We've passed off the expenses for north and south to the counties that are north and south to us, predominantly their work. We did that this year. Also transport back and forth to Geiger and to the courts. We have 19 officers assigned to court transport. So, food service, we had more than 1 million meals prepared last year. We also prepare all the meals for juvenile. And then the key here is maintenance of aging facilities. Geiger was built in 1952 and the downtown jail was 1986. So both aging facilities that are with failing infrastructure. So next slide, please. Programs, all the programs are currently done out of Geiger. Right now we're down to 2 work crews. We have 1 programs officer instead of 2. We have 2 work crews now. We had 7 crews at one time. Prior to COVID, staffing became such an issue. We kept reducing our work crews. Now we're down to 2 crews. 1 programs officer instead of 2. They take care of breaking barriers, reentry service, anger management, parenting classes, those kind of classes. Next slide, please. ADP since COVID. So prior to COVID, we were in the 900s, dropped down to 700s, 2020 in COVID, and we are creeping back up. See, for year to date, 2024, ADP is 862. It's not at the 962 or 900s we were before, but a key change we've made is we've had to reduce US Marshal and DOC populations. So right now we're running about 50 US Marshals a day. At that time in 2020, we were running 130 US Marshals a day. So if you take the Marshals out, that's a big portion of the change in population.
And did we have full capacity at Geiger at that time versus now?
I'm sorry about Geiger.
Did we have full capacity in 2017 at Geiger versus now?
We did. We had about 300 inmates out of Geiger at that time, and now we have about 220 inmates out of Geiger. So, and a lot of that is driven by, we just don't have eligible inmates for Geiger as well. And I think everybody knows Marshals won't let us keep their inmates out of Geiger. They're all classified as a medium or above. So more serious crimes is one of the things that's leading to a reduced population out of Geiger.
Which is leading to capacity at downtown.
Overcrowded. That's what led. So the whole number isn't all that big overall, but downtown number is. So that's why we had to reduce the Marshals and DOC to make room for the felonies and higher level offenses.
Okay. I think that's where sometimes these numbers don't really show the whole picture.
Yeah. Does that explain it a little bit? I don't know if I did a good job of explaining it, but that's where the 80 or
Yes.
difference is.
Well, I think it's what's our capacity downtown?
Downtown, it was built for 465 and I think if we figured every bed in there, every single bed, it was 717. But due to keep separates and house loans and gang issues, we at 650 or 660, we are pushing at the seams. And then Ken and I think we're in front of everybody on we're dealing with a capacity issue for everybody as well. And part of that is that the population's been driven down because same thing, we have so many housing loans, can't go with anybody else, mental health inmates, and then maximum security inmates, we just don't put anywhere else. And so I think I lost.
No.
I don't know if that's doing a good job of explaining or not, so.
And then because of more violent crimes, serious crimes, they're staying longer
They are.
in our facility, awaiting trial.
Yeah, we have, I mean, I think the average length of stay is in the 17 or 18 range, maybe even creeping up to 20. But we currently have inmates there for 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, we have one inmate there that's there for over 7 years now. So they just clog the system. They don't go anywhere for years. And typically they are housed alone because of the high level offenses. So.
Thank you.
So like I said, we reduced DOC down to 14 from around 22 in early 23, and now we're down to 50 for US Marshals. We were 90 earlier in the year, and in 22 we were at 130 US Marshals, and that's revenue that's lost by eliminating those beds as well. So, next slide, please.
Okay, my turn for the fun stuff. So this slide here shows us our initial budget. The first column is the initial budget with 100% of our vacancies, all of our positions included. Obviously, the big line item there is our salaries and benefits at approximately 43 million, just short of that, for a total of like 67.9 million, our initial budget. When we received the target budget that matches our 24 adopted budget, the second column there is all the reductions. The $5.3 million reduction in the salary and benefits line includes 52 of our FTEs, 29 unfilled, 18 currently filled COs, and 5 currently filled programs officers to get to that target budget. So 52 total FTEs were removed from the budget to get to our 2024 actual budget. The next line item there is the medical services contract. We were estimating 11 million for 2025. We are in the middle of the RFP process. I believe they're scoring and doing their analysis of the respondents currently, but we'll hit that one later. So we reduced that back down to our 2024 budget of 9.5 million. And there's some other various items in there that were relatively small for the most part. Next slide. This is just our 2025 adjusted budget, showing percentages, percentage of the overall budget. Everything but the last line item are what we consider fixed costs, uncontrollables, because they're either contracts or there are employees. So 93% of our budget is uncontrollable fixed. Next slide. For our additional budget requests for add back, there are 6 items here. So the 18 custody officers that we had to currently filled, 18 corrections officers that we had to remove from the budget to get there. Medical services contract, candidates in background and offer stage, overtime and holiday pay overtime, liability insurance, and program staff, the 5 filled FTEs there. In the next slides, we'll talk about each one of those. Starting with the custody officers. So as I said, we removed 18 of our currently filled custody officers on top of the 29 unfilled FTEs out of the budget to get there. To remove our currently filled, we would expect or estimate approximately 34,000 hours of overtime to fill the hours that they would vacate. because they're all positions that have to be filled at all times, minimum staffing. I'll let Dawn kind of talk about that piece of it.
So it looks like 18 officers, if we reduce staff 18 hours, we did in 2010. We had a budget shortfall, we had to reduce staff and lay off staff. Overtime obviously skyrocketed, double time skyrocketed. And in lead, obviously, let's see, 18 officers, figure every officer works about 1,872 hours a year after leave and holidays and sick days. That's where we get the $34,000 in additional overtime. The 1.7, no, $1.9 million in overtime to fill the vacancies. Other than the programming officers, other than if you totally eliminated programs, the other 18 officers all fill static work positions. So unless the population drops or there's the only services that we could give up at this point would be all the programs. And as it is, we've already reduced it so much over the last 4 years. Everything else just takes care of the mandatory positions, so.
So I have a question on this slide. So are you telling us that if we laid off 18 workers, we're gonna then be doing overtime? And it's basically a budget.
Almost, or a little more to be a little more expense for overtime. Yeah, so
So we're not adding
1.7,
folks, we're adding back one or the other.
correct, yeah, 1.7, if you reduced 18 officers, it'd be about 1.7 million, and it'd be, we estimate it'd be about 1.9 in overtime.
Okay, so I don't even see why we're talking about reducing 18.
Yeah, in the swing there, honestly, is we don't know what double time will look like, because that's really where the driver of when double time hits. I went back and looked at when we had 44 vacancies before, which is what the 18 would do. It was about 14% double time. So that's what we went with, was what did it kind of look like back in the day? So if it goes higher than that, obviously the expense on the overtime is more than the
Right,
cost to
and we all know
keep them
it's more
filled.
expensive if
Yep.
we're in overtime status all the time
Yep.
than just having the employees. And then it's also the safety and well.
Sure, we have a whole nother slide for that, because the same thing, we're not a fan. I feel like we're still, we've been talking about every year, all the vacancies we're trying to fill, for all of our signing bonuses and all the things. And we're finally starting to make our way there. And right now we're at 4% double time. So of all of our overtime, only 4% of it's double time. Double time for the officer's contract is after the third order. So on their fourth time a month, if we mandate them for overtime. So right now, very little that's on double time, which is when sometimes we've had different times during my career where we've had 8 or 12 mandatories a month for an officer. Just the impact it leads to burnout, it leads to sick leave, and it leads to people leaving. So. Next slide.
And second.
I'm sorry.
Can you go back a couple slides to the 2025 budget summary chart by chance? I'm just trying to catch up and follow.
There's one more back before that, but it has.
Yeah, one more back.
Yep.
if you could. Can you walk through what each of those columns means?
Sure. So the first column there is our initial budget. So we entered our budget with all the 100%. Budget office opened up all of our vacancies. So obviously that's the big line item there. And then the second column was our reductions to get us to what the target budget was, which is what matches our 2024.
So so initial budget is basically everything that you want. Is that
Correct.
Correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, correct.
That's your proposal. And then the adjusted budget was what budget office said your limit is.
Correct. And then
The
24
reductions is kind of where you recommended savings, right, to get there. Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Yep.
So just trying to understand, because I'm looking back at the agency summary page that we have in a different binder, and it shows in 2023, the actual salaries and wages spent was 24 million, basically. So how do we get to 42.8 in a couple of years? Is that just
So
reflecting?
it's the vacancy. There's,
Okay.
it's approximately 100,000 per person. That's kind of the number we use for a vacant position. So of the 29 we have, 2.9 million of that 5.3 is in the reduction column was for our vacancies. And then as we go backwards, we had more vacancies, years back.
So it looks like in 2024, for this year, there was a budgeted amount of up to 37.5 for salaries. How are we on track with that? And that reflects a vacancy adjustment, right? So where are we at for this year's pay?
So I'd have to specifically go back and look, but we are on pace to be almost right on that. Because we are actually hiring people and bringing them in to where, we've had some people leave and hiring more people, right? So we're kind of toeing the line.
And I believe we are given a estimate of 6% for salary increases for next year is what we're given. So,
Yes, built into Questica for 2020.
So you already have your salary increase.
Anything else on those?
Yeah, I'm looking at kind of your past actuals from 22 to 23. I mean, from 22 to 23, your overall budget increase was about 2.3%. This is an 11% ask. I mean, that seems like a very large jump than what you saw year over year in previous budgets.
Are you looking only specifically at salaries or overall?
No, I mean,
Overall.
from 60 to 67, I mean, that's like an 11% increase is what you're asking for, desiring. That seems like a large number compared to what your jumps have been previous years.
Yep. And a lot of that is the vacancies, right? For that 42.8 million on that first line there. We didn't expect it. It was just added back to the budget office and we knew
Okay.
there would be some vacancy reduction
Okay,
coming. That was just what was in the system.
okay.
And then the other bigger piece is the medical services contract
Yeah.
at 1.5 million. And again, that's an estimate because we're still in the middle of the RFP process. Could be higher, could be lower. I wouldn't expect it to be lower though.
I guess if I can ask a question to Tessa, the number on the spreadsheet, the budget spreadsheet that we had for custody officers, the number in there was 1.773 million. I mean, so was that number too low then? Or was that suffice? And I don't know if you guys have seen the budget worksheet that I'm referencing. This is something that I know we were given.
I think that 1773 is adding back the 18 filled, the budget for the 18 filled.
That's the number
That
for
is
the
that.
18.
Correct.
Okay, okay. Oh, there it is. Yep, you are right. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's 2 slides down.
Yeah, we're on.
I'm jumping
like
back up and then
7,
jumping
yeah.
back down,
Yep.
you know, to kind of keep them straight here. Okay, okay. All right.
Continue.
Good to go?
Thank
Okay.
you.
No problem. If you want to jump a couple slides forward to number 7, I think is where we were. Oh, go back one more. Sorry. There we go. So the ask for the 18 filled positions back to the budget, like we were just talking about, is the 1.77 on this slide, rounded up to 1.8 million. I think we've covered all the rest of them. I think so. Next slide. The next request back is the increase for the medical services contract. Like I said, it's in the middle of evaluation and scoring process right now. The submissions were due 2 weeks ago on September 13th. So the review committee has it in their hands. The 2024 budget was 9.5 million, and we're estimating a 15% increase. Realistically, it's 11 million as a placeholder. Like last year, we're proposing once we actually have the contract that we would come back in front of you, or it would go back in front of you with an actual number to true that up. Whether we leave it at 9.5 until we know that, put it to 11 million and true it up or down, depending on what the contract actually is. Questions on that? Next slide.
So already one additional budget request was positions that we got were approved back in, I believe, July.
Yeah, early July, we were tasked with identifying out of our vacant positions, who was in background and in the offer stage. And you guys, I think have all heard, our hiring typically takes 3 to 4 months, so we have people in the hopper months at a time. So we requested 10 of our vacancies to be allowed to fill them. 3 of them were hired on July 22nd, or we were approved for nine corrections officers and 1 cook. 3 of those corrections officers started on July 22nd. 5 corrections officers are starting next Monday. And the 1 cook is starting next Monday, which leaves us 1 of our approved positions to be filled likely on the January 7th hire date. Yep, sorry.
Oh, just same thing is continue hiring is, right now we have 289 filled positions. We're authorized for 319. And then some stats we looked up as well. We have 106 officers or staff that are over 50 years old. We have 42 with 25 plus years of experience. So like just right now on October 7th, we're hiring 5. 3 of them I know are already leaving January 1st. Not the same people, but we have 3 retirements.
Wow.
3 are leaving. I'm sorry.
What'd you do to those?
Well, we rent them out sometimes. No, 3 are leaving January 1st of known retirements. So we're just, same thing. It feels like we're hiring all the time. We're just barely creeping our numbers up. So as of today, we have 26 corrections officer vacancies and 4 cook vacancies. And we have 33 staff over 60 years old. So it's just, we just looked it up, like we've been seeing this coming for a long time. So retirements are going to come thick and fast. Right? So,
And staying ahead of the curve on hiring people, it takes typically 6 to 9 months to get people online before they're available to be on solo duty.
and just as a side note, right now we have 28 full-time employees approved for FMLA or WFML. 9% of our staff are approved for some level of other leaves. So, and that was never, before WFML, that was never funded prior to that. So. And most of our positions, like saying anything other than just a handful of programming staff or something like that, or clerical staff are all filled with overtime. So.
And I just want to make a note that Commissioner Waldorf, something is going on with our Zooms that she's not able to Zoom in, so she is watching on Facebook or on YouTube Live. So she is watching and is participating in the meeting, but we don't know what's going on.
We were losing, Verizon was going in and out back there about our work phones. A lot of our work phones were losing service, and as well as there was some network at the downtown jail. So issues just a few minutes ago before we came over. So
And I don't know, just check with IT to see if there's something going on across the county.
Ron's on.
I think it was just Verizon Wireless. It was Verizon Wireless users.
Okay.
but we were having network. We couldn't connect to the cameras either. So we were having some network issues over at the jail. So I don't know.
But just so everyone knows, she is watching.
He's always watching.
She's seeing everything we're saying. She's keeping up. She's keeping up on it. So,
Next slide, please. So the additional money, budget request for overtime and holiday payout, just maintain minimum staffing levels. More and more high-risk inmates, special court transports, medical appointments, hospital stays and emergency room visits. They're driving overtime. I think we're looking at about $300,000 extra above budgeted overtime and holiday payout this year over what we projected. And I've had more and more inmates on dialysis 3 days a week. We have more and more hospital transports, and we were sending 1 team out for outside medicals every day of the week, Monday through Friday. Now we have to send 2, and that's just done on overtime as well. So just the inmate population is getting sicker and sicker with more medical needs. So, and I don't see that going down anytime soon. So.
Next slide. So like he was saying, the overtime, so we had projected, or for budget for 4.1 million, we're projecting out that it's looking like it's gonna be 4.4. For this year. We had one specific inmate that was on dialysis that was a special, and we were sending,
He made threats to our staff. He was a 3-strike, meaning go to prison, and we send 2 officers out with a transport to an outside medical. We do, like I said, every day of the week. We sent 4 of our CRT, our specially trained officers out. And we were sending, at the very beginning, we were sending 6. He had threatened us. And we had either family members or friends of his that were following our transport teams. So so we took it very seriously. We had, like I said, 4 people, all on overtime, all of our specially trained CRT, which are typically senior staff making a higher wage. And then we still have 1 individual. He's in his 80s. He's been on dialysis. He's been here all year, and it's 3 days a week, 2 officers, 5 hours at a time, so 10 hours of overtime every day, 3 days a week. So they're just very, very expensive things to do.
sorry, kind of diverted, but that is a major reason for the overage in what we projected versus what is estimated for the rest of the year. So with the budget office's 6% COLA estimate, we've increased from our actuals number up to 4.6. So that results in that $475,000 additional ask. Next slide. There we go. So this one's pretty straightforward. Liability insurance. So this is a number that's provided by risk management every year. And there was a $286,000 increase in that number from what our 24 budget was. So we were asking for the additional $286,000. Next slide.
And this was in order to get to our 2024 actual or budget. We would have to remove programs. It would be one of the first things to go. If we had to reduce staff, we'd have to reduce programs. And I feel we've already done so much of that in the last few years due to staffing. I'd hate to do it due to budget as well, because really, this is the last. We have a big demand for the work crew officers at the fair, Hoop Fest, Bloomsday, PNQ, the volleyball tournament. At the fair, we only have 2 work crews, but we sent 2 more crews out on overtime. Just because it's a good service for the community. We love helping out. One time, I would hate the fair to go away because we can't help out on cleanup duties and those kind of things. And we think it's good for our offenders, that provides some life skills, and hopefully sometimes we don't see them anymore. So we have 2, so that would eliminate 2 case managers, a teacher, a diversion case manager, and a technical assistant that helps out. Would be that 5. That would be $480,000 savings. Just requesting to bring it back, keep it, I guess.
And it's one of the only non-mandated services that we are able to provide. Next slide. This slide is just the summary. So we're starting with our adjusted budget, which is our 2024 budget of the 60.7 million. The second column is all of our additional budget requests. The salary and benefits line, the 3.6, is the combination of adding back the 18 currently filled, adding back the 5 currently filled program staff, and then the 475,000 in overtime. The other line is medical services. That's the other large line. And then the third column there is what we're requesting after all of the additional requests. I believe that is the last slide.
Questions? Didn't cover?
What was the vacancy adjustment last year?
That's if you have it offhand. I think it was about 2.3.
It was 20 something FTE.
I think it was a 2.3 million.
And at the time when we were going into the adjustment, there were 30
plus vacancies, so I think we settled on around 15 funded. 10 to 15 funded corrections officers as a hiring goal for the team. All positions were left authorized, just not funded.
Correct.
And then that'll reset with the budget this year.
Feels like that's a good goal every year. If we can make a progress of 10, we hire 25 with 15 leave. I mean, that seems like 10 is a pretty lofty goal for us to make for progress in the course of a year. The same thing, we're hiring 25 is about as many as we can hire in a year for corrections officers anyways. But with attrition, we're losing 10, 15, 20, a year. So 2 years ago, we were in 35 vacancies. Now we're at 26. So we're moving that way, but it's a slow process.
So just so I'm following, and thanks for the info. I have a little snapshot that says 27 vacancies roughly currently. So are you 26 or ish? So you're saying if you essentially have a flat budget, then it doesn't just affect vacant positions, it also affects potentially current employees by the, how many?
18 more
18
corrections
COs.
officers and all the program staff.
And that's with that built in 6%.
We
Estimated COLA.
estimated contractual
Sure.
increases from union
Right,
negotiations.
yes, right, okay.
Yeah, the corrections officers, they have binding arbitration, so they off the comps that Josh thinks it's in that range, Josh Crowe.
Well, that's not good. Were there any other maintenance and operations things that you looked at for other savings?
So if you go back to the budget, if you want to bring
Slide
up the
15.
slide.
Slide
Yeah.
15 breaks it down.
If you go back to slide 5 of the presentation that shows the initial with the budget reduction, I think that's the best one there. So the bottom line on those budget summary ones, the budget summary slides shows our remaining M and O, that's kind of that's where our catch-all is. And we have out of that number, that 4.2 that was our adjusted number is 390,000 for building equipment and repairs and maintenance. 381,000 in Geiger utilities, commissary sale items. So we buy the items to sell at commissary and then they pay them and it kind of covers that cost, but that's 350,000. So if you look at all of those, there's almost $2 million accounted for in just those kind of essential things that we have to do. What else do I have in there? 250,000 for toilet paper, towels, clothes, just household items. Law library publications is 200,000. It adds up really, really fast to that 4.2 million. I think we did cut 100,000 out of that to kind of like we trued up what utilities were really looking like with some projections. And we took most of those line items right down to what this year was looking like. Just wasn't much slack in there.
And then you guys also looked at like discretionary travel and all of those type of things.
You did make go ahead.
So yeah, so travel is in there, but that includes sending our corrections officers to academy. And we did get notified by the state, the Criminal Justice Training Center, that they're increasing to 3,000 per person. 3,200, I think is the number. So if we anticipate hiring 20 to 25, there's 75 to 100,000 that we're gonna have to pay to send those people to academy. Thank you.
And there's no Eastern Washington Academy.
There is Eastern Washington, but that's the academy fee itself. It's the $3,000. I think we'll hopefully, at least for the next year, if they continue it for the anticipation are gonna renew it for 2 more years. That all of our people will go to Eastern Washington. So we have the 7th, we have 8 officers graduating academy this week or next week. So
From the first Spokane Academy.
this week,
And then
we're hiring new ones next week.
has
I'm
the
sorry.
state changed the level of training required? Because I remember a couple of years ago, it went from 6 weeks to 10 weeks.
Yeah, which you see that's an impact on overtime, because a lot of the officers, by the time they go to the academy, are already filling a position. We pull them out. From the time Director Sparber and myself went all the way until a year and a half or 2 years ago, it was 4-week academy, and they went straight to 10 weeks. About, like I said, a year and a half or 2 years, maybe it's been a little longer than that. So,
Which is taking this, which is causing another burden on counties. That the state's requiring.
yes. Yeah, it's mandated by the state.
Paying the state to train them.
Yeah, those officers are getting paid by us the whole time they're there, and usually a lot of times there's somebody backfilling their position on sites as well, so. If we get all the way caught up on academies, which we were about 15 officers back, we hired, 7, so 1 or 2 more academies will be up to, they'll all be completed, and then we'll send people, basically day 1, we'll hire, and they'll go right to the academy. It's just, I think it's a better way to train. If we have to send them to the academy, send them day 1, basically.
Thank you.
One more. How many total corrections officers are there?
200, I believe 220 funded,
I think 219.
219
is the
funded,
actual
so,
Authorized or funded?
Authorized.
Authorized.
and I think we're currently in the not exact, so 146 downtown and 42 out of Geiger, 46 at Geiger. I can get you the numbers. I can say.
I think total is like 192.
That's
that
good.
gap.
I was
Okay.
looking for a kind of a
Sure.
ballpark there.
That creates that 26 gap.
That's without the full position. Or is that what?
Pool positions are out there off the
Thinking of
books. They're off the books.
So, okay.
We haven't been anywhere near touching those for
Yeah. I think we only got there one time.
Maybe Phil,
Yeah.
time to time.
you're closer to full staff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks.
This will be more expensive for the corrections facility.
Getting more expensive on average.
Yes.
That boilers at my kitchen.
Yeah,
right
it's like
tonight.
boilers
Not sure you knew.
over time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We will let you guys go. I know, right? We're good. So thank you.
We're going to catch you up.
Okay, perfect. Well, based on that binder, doesn't look so.
I think it's my safety binder. I want to have it just ready to go.
I love it.
All right, first of all, I want to introduce, I don't know that you know, Teresa Stewart, who I had as business manager for 33 years, retired a year ago. And so Nick Lee came in, filling her shoes wonderfully. So it's Nick Lee, our business manager.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today.
No, thanks for being here.
Yes, so I'm gonna start off. Want to give you guys kind of just a snapshot of the 2024 budget and then kind of go over our requests and kind of where we were at. So in 2024, we were allocated $7,708,000. And what makes up our budget? It includes like an administration budget, probation budget, detention budget. We have Duke accounts, which I'll talk about a little later in the presentation, and then our Martin Hall contract, and that makes up the total of that $7.7 million. And so with the vacancies included this year, the total came out to be $695,000, $8,695,000, excuse me. And that's with all of our departmental vacancies included. And really what caused the increase there is accounting for salaries and benefits for staff. That made up a majority of what we were seeing. And we also were able to fill vacancies this past year with really qualified candidates that came in at a higher step.
You know, when I was doing the budget, I didn't request any additional maintenance and operations for admin, probation, or detention. I wanted to keep it actually under what we had requested in 2024, but of course, you know, with all those vacancies and just staff cost, that's kind of what we're seeing, that increase at.
Okay, next slide, maybe. I think in 2024, you know, when we got this number for 2025, it's like, why is there such a huge difference? We have not done any, we haven't added any positions, we're not adding anything extra. And then we learned that 7.7 million was without the many vacancies we had at the time that we worked throughout the year to fill. And so these are filled positions that brought us up to this 8.6. So now to try to get that back down, we are looking, we still have 3 juvenile corrections officer vacancies. So if we were to cut those, it'd be 241, approximately 1,000. We have a vacancy in dependency, which is actually filled with an extra help right now, okayed by the union through December. We can go without, we just had a retirement, 48-year employee actually. She retired, and then another half we can cut those and manage with other support staff throughout the building to share that workload. We still have a vacancy of a part-time nurse, although we would like to fill that position. If we cut that, we're looking at approximately 64,000, and we'll cover these costs on another slide. We also have some DUFB money that's around 200,000. We could cut a probation counselor, and we would do that in our diversion unit and fund that, backfill that with the DUFB funds. But that's only going to be for a year. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then Nickley worked some magic and just figured out where we could cut with some other M&O and a little bit of wage, but again, in 2025 to be backfilled or use those DUFB funds for. And then we really couldn't get there. We were 131,000 short of trying to get to that target budget. And the budget office, what do you know? They just took it. Tessa. They just said, wasn't that just mean? They said, well, here you go. It's gone. So again, that would be easily another position for us somewhere. Doing your job. They do a wonderful job. Okay, next slide, please. So then these are additional requests then, that if we were to make all those cuts, we're going to have to request some. And our first priority would be those 3 corrections officers. Although having difficulty filling those, they're hard jobs and low pay. And so it's a problem recruiting and then finding more qualified staff. So that would be, we would be requesting that 241,000 back. And as you,
So are your corrections officers not in the same, if I consider the same as the other corrections officers?
No, the jail COs make about $10,000 more a year than my folks do, and not in the same union. Yeah, completely different. The requirement that have ours is also different, and as you know, through our work with the juvenile jail sales tax education, we're required. Chapter 13 that covers juvenile justice requires that we have a detention center, requires you to adequately fund us for the staff as well as the building. And we need those positions. We have high risk, our system reform that we have done is really, the kids that we have left in detention are high risk and public safety, high needs too, a lot of mental health needs. So it's a difficult population and getting more and more difficult to manage, and we're understaffed as it is. Assaults increase, assaults on youth to youth, and then youth on staff increase. So it's a safety issue, which then brings liability issues. We were the first detention center in the state to have a PREA, Prison Rape Elimination Act audit, and we need to stay within appropriate staffing levels to stay in compliance with that. Thank you. Next slide.
All right, so our second request is just asking for that $131,000 that the budget office had adjusted back to our budget. You know, we just really would like to, you know, request this money to just ensure that we have enough funding for our electronic monitoring and detention programs. And like Tori has already discussed, you know, based on RCWs, we need to adequately staff our detention unit, and certainly our electronic monitoring group plays an integral part of our detention staff. You know, we use it as an alternative to housing kids in detention, and certainly would want to make sure that we can still adequately staff them as well.
Next slide, please. Thank you for doing that. This is an additional request to fund that dependency position, probation counselor 1 in our dependency CASA unit, to the amount of just over 76,000. Again, these are required by our CW. The court is by law to appoint guardian ad litems in the dependency cases for our representation and advocacy for our abused and neglected children. We also Spokane, we might still be the only one unified court. So it's one family, one judge. So it's one team, and that includes our CASAs. And so if we were to lose a CASA, that would really send that whole system out of balance and sending them cross teams, and then it increases communication, increases workload, and then lessens efficiency. So we would ask for that back, one, to maintain the service and our advocacy for kids, and then to maintain our unique and really sought after, admired unified court system.
Just a question on that.
Yeah.
Has that position been vacant for a while? Or what's the history
I
there?
would say maybe 6 months, but that is the one that's filled with extra help. We actually brought back somebody who had left one of those positions and is now working temporarily as an extra help through December. So the work is getting covered.
And then next slide. And then our fourth request is to fund our, you know, part-time registered nurse position. Yeah, move it back to being 100% allocated. The total request for this increase would be about $64,000. That's how much the position is forecasted to cost in 2025. And the reason why is just to make sure that we're providing our youth with proper medical services and treatment within our facility. You know, without this position, we may have to resort to, you know, going to use more outside treatment and outside providers. And that's not really the most fiscally responsible way to handle that. You know, a simple ER visit can cost thousands of dollars. And so by funding this position, we can treat more kids in-house and of course, keep our detention staff fully supported.
I'll share an example if you don't mind if I jump in here. If we have a youth brought in and coming in through intake, or she's coming in through intake, and our intake staff are doing their assessment on the kid. We go through a series of questions with them, and one of those sections covers medical. And if there's any concern of what was happening out in the field, we could have a nurse. If we have a nurse on staff, we could have that nurse come and look at the kid. Well, our corrections officers are going to be more conservative and, you know, better safe than sorry, are going to be more likely to send the kid out, not accept the kid. Or even on a kid that's booked in that situation without a nurse there, they're going to play it safe and send that kid to the hospital. So that's an example of how that can play. Next slide, please.
All right, and so now we're going to cover our Duke beat accounts. So those are our designated unreserved fund balance accounts. We have 4, and their use was determined by, you know, board resolution. The oldest of those accounts, I believe, was established in 1994. So have long been a part of our budget. I believe historically they've been used kind of as like a last resort, you know, rainy day kind of funds to be able to help support us when we need them. And so you know, these accounts include, they had recycling fees put into them, inmate phone call rebates for allocated into one account, and then ceiling and destruction fees still currently get put into one account, but that only is about a couple $1,000s in revenue every year. Currently, there's approximately $212,000 in there. And, you know, when prompted to be thinking about ways we could be fiscally responsible and handle this upcoming budget year, Tori and I discussed using these funds, utilizing them to be able to make up for cuts that we would be taking to the admin, probation, detention, like M&O, and hopefully, you know, funding a probation counselor through them. That way we can, you know, utilize what we have, what's already a part of that budget. However, you know, we tend to use these funds, and once they're gone, you know, and so we're proposing this as kind of a one-year solution. But these requests to use this, we're just kind of letting you know what we'd like to do. It's not like actually additional funds that we're asking. It's already there.
And I will add, as far as those phone calls, I made the decision probably a year ago, maybe more, to stop charging kids to make phone calls to their parents. It just is not the right thing to do and not worth the money you make. They should, and then you get to our disproportionality issues, and it was just it was not an equitable way of doing things.
Just a question on that. What is the total revenue that gets put into those on an annual basis?
On an annual basis,
Well,
it's just the, I think it's the account 0025. It's just the stealing and destruction fees. And so those, it costs $100 for someone to come in. So it really depends. It's about $2,000, $3,000 that goes into that. Yeah. The other accounts do not have any revenues coming into them. They've just been sitting there for a period of time.
So I'm just wondering if you use the 212,000 in 25, in 26, how much might be there at that point?
probably would not.
Couple thousand.
Yeah,
This
not
is
much.
for 1 year.
We're
1
trying
year.
to use them up. Yeah.
So we'll be back here with different numbers in front of you next year.
Yeah.
We'll slam down.
Oh,
And we'll tell you it's a one-time fix.
well, I saw that. I'm just wondering how does it replenish? At what level on an annual basis? Sounds like not very much. So.
No.
Yeah.
And I do have a plan I'll talk about a little bit later, an idea of something I want to request, and Mike and I talked about this, to maybe get part of these, half of these for another year, maybe to cover some M&O in 2026, but I'll cover that here. Oh, next slide, please. And the next slide. Thank you.
All right, and so on this slide, it lays out what we plan to use these the account fees for. So of course, that's funding one, diversion, probation counselor with those monies, youth incentives and supplies for probation. And then the other DFB accounts really to fund some professional services for detention. So that would be including our electronic monitoring contract that we have with a company that provides us the inventory for the monitoring devices and the software to do the tracking. It includes other supplies that just we need for our day-to-day operations in detention. That could be like hygiene products, incentives for the youth in detention, you know, for good behavior. And then also some food as well. In one account, we have about $14,000. If we use a majority of it for food, we can cover about 2.5 months worth of jail meals for our detention center using that. And yeah, we would like to move forward with this plan. And next slide.
Yeah, and we've already talked about this, just want to make it clear that this is just for 2025. And when we're using this to fund one of our diversion staff, that we're also looking at, we're starting a new program in juvenile on our domestic violence kids, because we're seeing so many of those. We're not getting services to them soon enough. They come in as a low level because really it's a misdemeanor, it's 4th degree assault. Well, we're sending them home to where the crisis is, and I believe I've talked to you all about this before. So we're starting that program, so we might be able to use, let those kids may end up to be diversion. So we would like to maybe take one of those probation counselors, move them into this new program and make a request for mental health sales tax dollars. And that's something, I will do through Mike and bring back to you potentially later. But it is another idea of maybe where we could capture at least one position. And would maybe be able to use these doofies in 2026. Because our probation counselors are agency affiliated counselors through the Department of Health, and we are a licensed behavioral health agency. So I think we could make some use of mental health sales tax dollars.
Next slide. All right, now we're gonna kind of go over some of our capital requests for 2025 as well. Our top priority is just our detention kitchen bathroom model. This has been an ongoing project through here in 2024. It's to build out our bathroom back in detention. It is the only bathroom that is back there for staff use. It is incredibly small, as you can see with the pictures. That's a staff member trying to fit into the bathroom. And so by, building this out, it'll be ADA compliant, and then we'll be putting in a 3 compartment sink to get our kitchens just, up to code. In 2024, $200,000 is allocated to the project. We are in process of going out for construction bid. It's just taken some time. We're working with facilities on this project, and we want to make sure that the $180,000 is still allocated. The additional $180,000 is still allocated for it in 2025. But we do anticipate construction starting here at the end of the year.
Okay, other capital requests, as this says here, we've asked for this since 2018. 2 reasons: safety and ADA compliance. The picture in the next slide. The picture in the forefront is where our receptionist sits, and they are isolated there. There's no exit into the secure part of the building. And so we would like to move that to where they can exit into the hallway that is secured. And you can't see it well. I don't know if you can see it on your screens, but in that same picture to the right in the back is where security sits. Well, they can't see who's coming in that entrance. So again, it's a safety issue. And then these bathrooms are not ADA compliant. If you see, you have to go behind this wall, get around, get into the bathroom. Those bathrooms, you cannot access a wheelchair in there. Our only ADA compliant bathroom, you need to go get on our elevator that's more of like a freight elevator, and you need a key. So it's embarrassing if we have somebody that needs a ADA compliant bathroom. So safety issues and ADA compliance. And then we have some confidentiality issues with our dependency unit and our offender kits. There's a lot of meetings that go on there, and we don't have enough meeting rooms in that lobby or around the lobbies. Okay, next slide.
Can I ask Tori, with the one here with I don't know what you call it, sort of the cubed in area where the gal is sitting here. I believe when you first came in, so this was constructed not terribly long ago, right? The initial ask was that sort of, I don't know what you call it, the little office that was constructed there in the lobby. That was an ask from Juvenile for the county to build that. That was built, and now you'd like it removed and changed, correct?
Yes.
So this was an update at one time,
Bad idea.
but we already spent funds once
Yes.
on this.
And I'll have to go
You
back
want us to
and
tear it
look.
out and move it somewhere else.
Yeah, it's been, I would say, more than 10 years, so I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
know.
probably.
I don't know the request. I'd have to go back. I wasn't
Okay.
in this position. I wasn't even probably probation manager at the
Okay.
time. And I think one thing, Commissioner, that happened is that confidentiality in the meeting room. I think where the receptionist is now a meeting room. So it was probably twofold, is to get another meeting room there. We still don't have enough. And that was before, I don't know how many different mass shootings, that was before a lot of courthouse security issues that we're seeing and the safety issues that we're much more aware of now with shootings in the workplace.
What would be your ideal number of meeting rooms in that space.
I don't know that we could get enough, but we would like to add at least one more. And we did have some just rough drawings of how maybe we could accomplish that. So if we ever get through all this. Thank you. Okay, next slide, please. This is our detention flooring. It's terrazzo flooring. It's a specialty flooring. It's hard to get repaired. It's hard to get replaced. Thus, the cost that has gone up significantly since we originally had this go out to bid. But it is old and out of shape and chipping, and just some safety matters. We had an original bid of around 30,000. That was a while back, and now that is closer to 60,000 to get this both repaired and clean. Next request, please. This is a request to get our staff bathrooms throughout the building updated. This, you know, it says here that most haven't been remodeled since the 90s based on the color of that countertop. And one of the bathrooms outside my office of olive green, I think some of these were talking the 70s, they've been updated. This orange counter that you see here is literally screws falling off and it's screwed to the wall. How, I don't know, not my forte, but it was a repair job that it's not quite adequate. So old and outdated. Next request, please. Or next slide, thank you. Either one, same thing. This is our gym floor down in our detention center where we hold rec. And it is, again, getting old and getting worn, and there's some uneven parts in there. We have to replace this. This is a guess, you all, but I'm saying maybe 15 years ago we had this done, and it's time to do it again. Largely safety concerns with it being uneven and worn. And kids and staff who sometimes engage with the kids for rec. It's a safety issue.
What is the surface? It's hard to tell. I mean, this almost looks like it's is this like painted concrete almost? Or
No,
what is
it's
this?
more of a foamy, and that's the best way. It's almost not foam like a mat you're gonna jump on, but it does have some squish to it, and I don't know how to describe it with an overlay over it. But if you were to dig down, you're gonna pull out soft or squishy. I don't know, best way. Again, not my forte. Okay, next slide, please. Is our carpet. Our carpet all over the building has been replaced just to budget constraints where you absolutely had to. It's been replaced in pieces. It's just mismatched all over. And then we have some, it might be a little hard to see the picture on the right. You know, it has the waves in it and it's raised up, and you can't quite see as well how worn some of the carpet is. So it'd be carpet replacement on our second floor upstairs. And that's it for our capital requests. And if we could go to the last slide. Just a, reminder that this is not, our request do not include anything additional as far as positions that we had from 2024. Our significant issue was the budget we were given for 2024 included many vacancies that we were able to fill. So that's a significant difference. As you know, the large majority of what we do, we operate lean. The large majority of what we do is required by RCW. You're just asking for the ability to maintain the services we have. Even though right now, I will say we are understaffed in many areas, and I just want to be able to maintain that. Going any lower, we are just not going to be able to provide the services to the kids and the family. And when we provide good services to the kids and family, and I am thrilled with staff, they're phenomenal. We've just been lucky and great. that benefits the community. So I just want to be able to maintain that level. I mean, you all know, you're well aware of what happened when JR Juvenile Rehabilitation made some decisions that they did and understaffed. They're in a world of hurt right now. I want to prevent things like that. But really, of the almost 1 million that we were needing to do in this exercise, we're asking for about half of that. To be able to maintain. Any questions?
In the RTW that you referenced a couple of times, the 13-16-040, is there a legal definition for the word adequate? Cause I know she underlined and bolded it.
Yeah, I asked if we to do that, yeah. No, and that's not gonna be, most of the time, Jim, you can help me out, most of the time when it's not defined in RCW, you go to Webster's for the definition, so we could do that.
That's right.
Thank you.
Just a question, so, thanks for the information and what you do. In going to the 7.7 million, which is the target, right? Does that require any layoffs of current staff?
No.
Okay.
Not filling the vacancies, that's
Right, not filling the vacancies that you would like to see in for good operation.
Well, we do have the extra help, that one that would, which they're aware that that's done at the end of the year.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
I can just say I can attest to the great work that the Garden ad litem and CASA folks do. It makes a huge difference for the quality of the casework, for the benefit of the kid and family, so just wanted to make sure that's clear.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's a tough unit to work into. A lot of our staff see horrible things. That one is the vicarious trauma in that you've been working with those cases. It's horrific.
A lot of times the social workers are overwhelmed with huge caseloads, and that CASA Garden ad litem has the ability to be that advocate for the kid and fill in those gaps.
Right. Department is. Question?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate the information. Lots of decisions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Back on time. Like the clerk.
Oh, good morning. I'm gonna, when does Josh grab a seat? See your smiling faces. Having fun yet? Always. Okay, well,
Go ahead.
I am all set. Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, good morning. Staff, good morning. We appreciate the opportunity to spend the next half an hour or so talking about our clerk's office budget proposal. You asked us 4 questions, and that's what we're going to present to you today. We're going to answer all 4 of your questions that you asked. When we proposed our initial budget, we kept our O&M the exact same as it was in 2024, maybe a tad bit, like $1,000 higher. And we kept our personnel staffing at our 64.5 people. So we didn't ask for any increases. We didn't adjust anything. We kept it just that way. Budget asked, can you make some more cuts? Can you take a look at it? So we went back to the O&M on our second round, and we looked at cutting 54,000 from our own O&M down to the bare minimum that we could operate with, that we think we could operate with. It's about 21% of our O&M that we cut. We kept our staffing at 64.5 people. Budget came back again and said, yeah, you gotta hit the target date, the target goal, and show us what that would look like. For us to hit our target goal, we'd have to eliminate 1 position, and we cut our entire O&M. And then we're gonna address on what we're gonna ask back on the O&M, how to make it work. That's what put us at the target goal. That's where we sit right now. Our challenge, as some of the offices will have, is that 96% of our entire budget is people. That's what we have. And so there's no way around that. Our concern is that the impacts and cuts that we do will be very significant on the courts. We have to make cuts on the prosecutor, on the public defender, and on detention services, that we will impact them. And of course, you just heard juvenile. I have an entire division that sits in juvenile, and we would impact them significantly with any cuts that we do. So we're like that hub in a wagon wheel, where everything goes through us in the legal system. All right, next slide. So that kind of sets the stage for what you asked. So let's go to your second question. You said, what supplemental requests are we going to make to address our shortfalls and put us where we think we need for our agency? And so our supplemental request is broken up into two parts, the O&M budget request and of course the staffing request. And we are willing to forfeit our entire capital budget request to zero for 2025. We can take all that away and we won't ask for that. All right, next slide. So continuing with your second question, what I'm asking for on our target goal, what I need now to run my office are these 6 items on the O&M that you see before you. The office supplies, the advertising, professional services, postage, software, and the additional O&M for our unemployment insurance. That is all I'm asking back from my O&M, but it does come out to $191,000 is what we're asking for back. As Commissioner Jordan knows, the advertising is our dependency publications. That is statutory. I have to do that. Office supplies, we're intensive on paper, on ink, our stamps, our toner for our copy machines. Professional services are our contracts, our Loomis Guardian security contract, our maintenance for our copiers, or maintenance for our scanning equipment, all that we have in the office. Postage is statutory. We have to email out requirement for us. On the software, 75,000 of the software is our true filing, electronic filing system. And that's what we do right now. So it puts us in the top 6 in the state of Washington. We have eliminated our entire electronic signature program as trying to compensate where we can help out. The court doesn't use it well enough. So right now we took that out for next year. We're looking, trying to get it back into 2026 after we rewigger some of our mechanics in our automation, our computer systems to make it a bit easier. But the e-filing is what we really need. And of course, the additional cost, some of that is staff training and the unemployment insurance. And that is also our communications gear, microphones and all that we have in the office. That is our O&M request, $191,000. The second part of the request is staffing. The first part of the staffing request was when they did the cut and looked around for vacancies, we had one court clerk that had just resigned. And when they did the cutoff was actually 17 June. We had this position filled by 3 June, but they added it in as an unfunded position. It's one of the cut positions. We'll talk more about staffing, but we'd like to have that court clerk back. I need that court clerk. That gives me 25 court clerks to cover the court. I mean, right now in the court, and I think most of you already know this, but we're covering 13 judges, 8 court commissioners, 14 pro tem commissioners in the commissioner pool, and we have 5 retired or AR6 judges that come once a week to hear dockets. So we run 21 to 22 dockets a week. I have 25 clerks. Obviously, we want to retain this one clerk because that's what you gave us last year. We did ask for 2 court clerks. You asked us to hold off on that second court clerk until this year. Obviously, we're not going to ask for that second court clerk this year. We'll do with what we have. We'll operate with the 25 court clerks that we have. And then we have the additional conversation of the 103 fund. And I see that the auditor is here to help us with that. So the 103 fund is a fund that comes out of, in fact, I'll tell you what we can do. Let's just go to the next slide. But I'll tell you what, hang on here for a second. Just want to do the 103 fund is the auditor's fund. It is paid for out of RCW 3622-170. In that fund, the auditor is allowed to do a surcharge to recording documents. And then that money goes into the fund. And that fund sustains not only O&M, equipment and stuff like that, but it also sustains 5 people. 3 of those people are mine, 2 of those folks are Vicky. The fund is drying up because the revenue is drying up. That's why we're here right now. So there's not enough money going into the fund on the surcharge. So the fund does belong to the auditor. Vicky and I have talked.
What is that revenue stream? You say it's drying up. What's the funding mechanism for it?
So there's a surcharge that is paid for on recording fees.
Recording,
And
okay.
a percentage of that surcharge goes into the 103 fund and covers it. And that percentage is because there's a decrease in overall recordings in her office, that surcharge is decreasing. And that's what we're looking at. So we mapped it out and we look like the fund will be pretty much near bankrupt at the end of 2025 if we continue carrying all 5 people and the equipment and the O&M in the fund. So we talked about it. Again, it's the auditor's fund. So I've been asked to remove 2 of my folks. So I've taken 2 of my folks that are in my archival division, because I also do a ton of archiving. At 2,300 documents a day, at 42,000 documents a month, we do a great deal of archiving for the county, for the legal system. We took 2 of our people out of the 103 fund. We kept 1 person in the 103 fund along with Vicky's 2 people. That will cover us through 2025, and she'll have to address it again on what we'll do in 2026. And I'm asking to move those 2 people over to the general fund. And that's what that $142,096 is all about. So that'll be 2 folks I need that I'll put into the general fund.
Question
Yes,
for you,
please.
on the archival team, can you talk about that scope of work? Is it project based, is it time limited, or is it just permanent need that we have?
Both time limited and on permanent need. So not only does archive all of our legal record, they QC our legal record. So I'm trying to get away from paper, but by legal standards for the court to authorize me to destroy a paper record, I have to verify it twice. So we look at it one time and say, yes, what the legal record shows is what the paper record shows. Plus, we're looking at the copy of the legal record. Is it copied correctly? Can you read the documents and all that? Then that's one that's called, that's a QC round 1. Then the second QC round is done again, just to verify that everything in that electronic record is exactly what's in the paper record. Then I ask the court an order to destroy the legal paper record. And that's called a QC project. And in fact, I have some notes on that later on about how far, that's just a lot of work. And I don't have extra people to do it. My archival division does that. They also maintain all of our legal record in the archives, including the microfilm. They also maintain all exhibits. I have to keep exhibits, especially in criminal cases, in perpetuity. This is always the option to appeal. So that we have to take care of all those exhibits in the proper manner. So they do all of that. In addition, people go down there to look for their court records, and they service the customers on looking at the court records on the microfilm, the film reader, or in the paper copy. Or we send them up to our office and look at a digital copy. Did I miss anything? Did that answer your question? So and it's only 4 people. It's just 4, and they do all of that. But 42,000 documents a month, they're handling all that. But we're efficient, and that's like Tori said, I have a great staff. I have a phenomenal staff, and they make it work. So that's the situation with the 103 fund right now. So I have 2 folks I had to pull out. I have 1 person still in that will carry through 2025, but the 2 that come out need to be funded in by the general fund. And that's what one of our requests is. We were not sitting too terribly bad, but when you add 142,000 on top of the deficit, that makes it a bit more of a challenge. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, your third question was, based on our experience, how likely are we able to fill our vacancies? What's our retention rate? Well, we have a phenomenal retention rate. Back in 2022, when the AG's office opened up their office in town, and they had a lot of gaps, and they pay more than we do, I lost 4 clerks that went over to the AG's office. That was in 2022. In 2023, I was fully staffed. In 2024, I had 1 vacancy when they did the spot in time check. I am fully staffed right now. We stayed fully staffed throughout the entire year. When we have a vacancy, it takes us about 30 days to fill a vacancy because of the way the rules are set up on how you have to fill a vacancy. You got to post it for 5 days in the county, 5 days to the public, get the list from HR, select who you want to select, set up interviews and everything for those folks, do the interviews, then make an offer. Then there's a background check, and then some of these folks have a 2-week notice they have to give. So that's why it takes up to 30 days. But as you can see, we refill our positions right away. And right, as you sit here right this moment right now, I am fully staffed again.
Those 2 positions, one was for the continuances, right? Because we wanted to get ahead of the continuance. And the other one was the second asked if we were gonna ask for this year. I just want to make sure I got it right. Was that, one was a clerk, or were they both clerks?
The last year's ask was 2 courtroom clerks, 1 finance clerk.
Okay,
2 years ago was when I asked you for the processes that you got for us for the continuances.
Okay.
And I'm gonna address that issue too. on
Okay,
How
I just
successful
wanted-
that has been.
thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. So any questions on your third question to us about the history of the staffing of the office? Okay, in fact, Mike, I appreciate that. You have a perfect lead in. So I had some notes. I just want to kind of bounce off to you. I've come down here for the past 5 years asking for additional staff in certain areas. And I tell you what I need. I tell you what I'm going to do with it. And I tell you what the expected result is for what you've done for me. And you've always been very gracious at giving me these people that I have asked for. And you know, if you go back quite a way, I go back 4 or 5 years ago, I asked for 2 process clerks to create a protection orders team. You gave me both those clerks. We created a protection orders team. We automated the entire system between us, police records, and the squad cars. We do 44 protection orders a day, and our system is the model for the state. Everybody uses our system as what they do. It's very effective. It makes a huge difference. Obviously, the liability of a survivor walking out without a protection order would just cripple the county. And we've done a great job on that. If you figure 44 a day, you never hear challenges or issues. In fact, Commissioner Kearns got an email from the YWCA asking a question about orders not being in. I sent her a response back saying, no, check this, check this, check this. It's all covered. And they realize that now. They didn't realize the whole second half of what goes on with our protection orders program. But you gave me those 2 processors and we did that. We came back and we asked for 2 more court clerks because of the amount of pro tems coming in, the amount of AR6 judges coming in, busy judges. You gave me that. And like I said, we run 20 to 21 to 22 dockets a day. We don't miss a docket. If I can't put a clerk in the courtroom, the court can't have a hearing. And so that's a problem. That's a big problem. And I don't want to be the cause of that. I don't want to be the problem that court can't do their hearings because I don't have a clerk to put in there. Then to your question, we asked for 2 more processors back in 2023. You gave us the processors?
Before you go on the processors, how often does it happen that you don't have a clerk in the?
It never happens because my managers and I go in the courtroom and we clerk it. When an AR6 judge comes, I clerk that courtroom. If it's a visiting judge or a pro tem, Glenda will clerk it. My manager in juvenile, Sam Soto, will clerk the courtroom. So we clerk it to make sure we cover the gaps. And
You guys are doing it yourselves.
we do it ourselves. Because we have those times when it happens. Again, 21 of them, 25 of me, somebody's on vacation or sick, or I have a court clerk right now about to go on maternity leave. I lose them for 4 months. So we cover those dockets. Because that would really be a big problem. The court can't do its job because I can't do mine. Not only is that bad, I have to hear about it. So, a little self-preservation there. But no, we cover those courts, we make it happen. Additionally, I showed a couple of you the closet courtrooms that we created for remote hearings, so we can cover the remote hearings. So they bring in 2 judicial officers, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and it's all remote. I can cover it out of the closet courtrooms that we created. Those 2 closets we made into courtrooms. We can do remote hearings, and again, that helps us out. They bring in an extra commissioner. We can cover those remotely.
Thank you.
But the processors that Mike was just talking about, I asked for 2 processors back in 2023. You gave me 2 processors, or 2022, for continuances. And we have cut continuances by 1/3. And that is documented, but I'll defer to Mike on that one, what his records show.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't looked at lately, but that's amazing.
We've literally cut 1/3 of all continuances down because we have to get the legal record in electronic record system within 24 hours. That's the local court rule. That's what they need to go into the next set of hearings. So if we don't make that happen, then they have to continue the case. In fact, just as a note that, our entire legal record's online now. We have the entire legal record online for people to access remotely. Josh created a finance system so they can make copies online, pay online, and not come down to the courthouse and clobber our courthouse and create, all the lines that we have. We've eliminated all that from the courthouse record online. Last year, it's when I asked you for the extra clerk to cover the 13th judge, and I asked you for the financial officer, the financial clerk, which has been awesome for us. Because now we're caught up on judgment and sentences. That's a big deal. That's a timeline too. I'm under several statutory timelines to have the record and documents done and in the system at a certain time. If we don't do that, then we are under liability. For example, the warrants and the bonds. We get tons of warrants and bonds every day. Sometimes the warrant has been quashed by the court, but if I don't know about it, then the person gets rearrested, then they can file a claim against the county. And then the last thing for Josh's office, with that extra clerk that he got, he does $70,000 up to $333,000 a day in court financial costs. And we are audited every year by the state auditor, by DSHS, and we are audited by DOR every year. And we have to pass those audits, or it makes Vicky's job a lot tougher. So you gave us those folks, and those are the accomplishments we have done. We have never failed an audit in 11 years. So, and that's a lot of audits. Okay, next slide, please. Your final question you asked us was, what will happen if we have to take the cuts? We have to have the 2025 proposed budget and not what we're asking. This chart kind of spells it out. We are number 2 in the state. Now, Kane County does not put their data on, so nobody knows what Kane County is doing. But Pierce, us, and Snohomish do. We are number 2 overall in the state in the volume of new cases. We are barely behind Pierce. We're not that far behind them. So with my current staff of 64.5 people, I can handle this workload. I can make it happen. Snohomish has 76 in their clerk staff, and they do less than what we have. It's the capacity and our efficiencies and our modernization that enable us to hang in there. Okay, next slide. Again, if I had to take the lower budget, the 2024 budget, here's your key takeaway. We do 42,000 documents a month that we are entering. We are growing. It's increasing every month, but we're not at a sprint. So at the current pace, I can handle it. But that's 1,000 documents more at this time than it was last year. So I have 1,000 more documents that we are now processing at this time than what we had last year. Overall, Washington State has increased significantly. And what I want to point out to you is that you take the entire Washington State increase, 16% of all that is Spokane County. We represent 16% of the entire increase in the state of Washington out of 39 counties. That is substantial. However, we planned for these increases 3 to 4 years ago, and that's why I asked for the people that you gave me to put in the right spots to be able to do this as we saw the increases happening. So we're able to keep pace with the current workload. We can do that. Maybe because the current staff has the efficiency, the modernization, and streamlining to make it work. Okay, next slide, please. So with my current staff, I can keep pace into 2025. Our projected numbers of caseload, new cases, old cases, resolution completions, and finance, with what we have at 64.5 people, we can make it work. If I have to cut O&Ms where I want to cut, I would prefer not to cut any staff. If we do O&M cuts, though, my top item, e-filing, I don't want to lose the e-filing. That makes us very modern and efficient. So I don't want to lose any of that. I don't want to lose the court records or exhibits. I cannot lose dependency publications because that's statutory. That would be a problem for the AG's office if that happens. On the staff cuts, if I'm forced to make a staff cut, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 staff cuts. The way it's set up right now, I'll have to eliminate one docket. I'll have to ask the court to to reduce one docket a day, because they won't have a clerk to fill that docket. We will increase our backlog in caseload. So just give you an example, that QC project I was telling you about, that quality assurance. We're at February 2024. Eliminating paper copies. So anything prior to February 24 in criminal has been eliminated. It's all electronic. Civil is November of 21. Domestic is October of 21. Probate, guardianship, adoption, paternity, August of 2021. That's the stacks of paper we still have to QC. But I do it in-house as a collateral duty with my people. It'd be nice to have the staff for that, but that's not going to happen. So we do that all in-house. Criminal is the main focus, but that has to be eliminated. And of course, if I had to take folks out of my arc, if I don't get the 103 fund folks transferred to the general fund, and I have to eliminate those positions, then I'll be indefinitely holding paper because I can't do my QC program. There'll be reductions in clerk's dismissal. That's statutory. Every year we have to clean up all the unresolved cases that have been not touched for an entire year, but that's a lot of research, a lot of work to do that. Archives does that for me also as a collateral duty. The warrants, the bonds, we're gonna fall behind in that. And we'll have to eliminate our online services to the folks. We'll have to eliminate our online phone services that people call in. We get 64 phone calls a day for service. We get 65, 68 emails requesting service. And Archives helps us, and customer service does that for us. So those cuts will have to eliminate those positions. I'll have to fair share it. Obviously, each division will have to take a cut. And of course, I'm a union office, so there'll be a domino effect. So it'll roll down to our newest employees, which will guarantee me I'll be losing probably at least 2 core clerks, which I can't afford to lose. But that's what will happen by the way the contract is signed and how it has to be done. I can shift it to some other departments, but that one has to take a hit too. So that would be the impact if I have to make any cuts, especially in staff. All right, so in summary, we are an office of economy. We really are. We are that hub in the middle that everything goes through. Our budget increases for 2025 is salary only and benefits. That's the increases. We have asked for no additional people. We've asked for no additional O&M. Or just salary increases that are our increases. We are ahead of the game right now with everything that we're doing with remote hearings, covering Blake, covering the LFOs, protection orders, covering continuouses. DOC and AOC made a major mistake in their LFO billing, and they overcharged Spokane defendants, 15,000 of them. They overcharged them on their LFOs. And they did that all 39 counties in the state. Josh's team took that on as a collateral duty, and we got all 15 adjudicated and got us out of the spotlight. But there are counties that are being sued now because they didn't get theirs done. We got all 15,000 of our cases cleaned up, but it took you how long to do that?
Very long time.
Okay, very succinct answer, very long time. But that's what I have with the staff right now. I have a very experienced staff. They can get the work done. They can do the workload as they have. Again, I operate without a chief deputy. I operate with a very flat staff. My managers all report directly to me, and they run my 7 divisions. And all my managers are either in a courtroom sometimes or on the front counter working. You've seen us up there. So everybody's being used. I mean, we make it work day in and day out without causing too much chaos for the prosecutor, the public defender, or the courts. And that's all we have. That's our argument.
Any questions for Tim?
What do you attribute to the low vacancies that you've had?
Number one, the Evergreen study, that was brilliant. We got bumped up where they belong. They used to be $19, $18, or up around $21. That's our joke was, we call that Chick-fil-A Amazon money. We had to be paid more than Chick-fil-A and Amazon to compete. And so we did. We have a great work environment. Our office environment is really good. People enjoy the work climate. They enjoy coming to work. We have a lot of fun. We had donut day last Friday. You know, we have fun tie Friday. Everyone wears goofy ties on Friday. It's just a lot of fun in the office, but they all do their jobs. And they do them well and they work hard. The court has just sent me an email recently that they've been approved for a 40-hour workday for judicial assistants. which means the courts could start at 8 o'clock in the morning. Which is gonna be a challenge, because that means I gotta stop working at 4 o'clock and I can't do that. So we got to figure out how to make that work, as we're an 8.5 workday. So these are the things that we work around, these are the things that we make work. And that's what, because the staff has the experience. That's the main thing. I have an experienced staff that can cover the extra work without asking for more. But yes, and we are fully staffed right now.
Well, I just have to say, you are the hardest working elected that I see around here. Your car is here more than anyone. So I know, you're in the courtrooms and you're helping do everything you can, so, you guys are lean, and I think that's why over the years we've, given you the additional staff to get, help your, department, make sure everything's running efficiently, effectively, so we're not getting sued. I remember a time where you were very worried that we weren't getting things into the system properly, and to get us, to that electronic processing, too, is huge. So I remember when I first started seeing all the stacks of paper.
You remember that?
We
So,
all took the paper tour.
yes.
They used to call that stuffing. We have eliminated stuffing.
So,
So the stuffing is all gone now. Like the records are electronic. I need the court to accept the electronic record as the record, but we're not there yet. We still have paper. Supreme Court has directed all clerks offer several options for access to justice. Paper is an option. So we have to maintain the paper trail a little bit on our capabilities. But with 64.5 folks, we make it work in all the areas of the court system that are required.
thank you for all that you're doing. Any other?
Okay, so that's our final ask, is the 191,000 for O&M and leave my staff at 64.5.
Which, can you quantify what that means in the additional ask to keep it at 64.5?
So I think that would put us, I think counting the two from the 103 fund moving, I think it's a $391,000 ask. Total.
That includes the M and O.
That includes the 191,000 for M&O, and that includes the one court clerk at 58,000, and that includes the two archival folks in the 103 fund at 142,096. Back me up, Tessa, is that correct?
Spot on.
Well, okay.
For the 103, you have that number exactly.
So that would be,
So what's the total?
200 for staffing.
that would be,
So just for the future, that's more helpful to have it broken out in your summary, what the tasks are in the total. You're very good at that.
58.
Yeah.
I guess we have it in our binder, so
We'll make sure we have a good total for the commissioners as a recap.
It's $391,168.
What's the pennies?
Any pennies?
No pennies. We round it up. No, that's what the ask would be. To retain all 64.5, and that includes the two out of the 103 fund moved on to the general fund. That includes the one court clerk, and then that includes that slide that I had on the exact ask for the 6 O&M budget issues.
thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, so that takes us to the end of our agenda. Is there any miscellaneous items coming for today? No. Okay. Well, there we go. Then we're gonna get ready for the morning and for the day. Let's see everybody back tomorrow morning. Tomorrow on our agenda, so I didn't see people at 2 through.
Oh, for the afternoon?
Okay.
So we will see everybody tomorrow. Okay.
Sounds good.
Quick reference, commissioners,
What
The,
the
uh,
recording stops. Oh, I'm sorry. No, you can turn it off.